What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And on today's show, I got a great guest on the show. He's big with the Boston Celtics. He does a lot of great work. He's the host of the CelticsBlog and lead writer. Also co-host the Hoop Spy with Jonathan Macri, who's been on the show before. So I'm happy to have him on. Adam Taylor, what's going on, my man?
What's going on, man? Happy to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. So just how's everything going with you? How's life? Obviously coronavirus and all the craziness going in the world. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing well. I'm just putting loads of work into basketball-related activities at the moment. I have a bit of extra free time working from home, and the lack of commutes really helped. Games being all on the East Coast has made it far easier to catch more ball. So I'm just putting that grind in, man.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a grind for sure. But so before we get into talking ball and all that, just talk to me about how you when did you first start watching basketball? Just talk about just ever how your first love of basketball, and when was that first? When did you first fall in love with the game?
Oh, man, it must have been like 94, 95. I'm a bit of an older head, not too old. We used to get like one game a week on out here.
Okay.
If you can't tell by my accent, I'm based out in England. I'm very unhappy about that situation. But we used to get one game a week, and the game was obviously cherry picked, so it was going to be one of the Knicks, the Celtics, the Lakers, or the Michael Jordan era balls. Or I think actually it might have been the year that Jordan was actually playing baseball. It was around that time anyway. Yeah. And every week it'd be a different team, and it would be whichever of those four teams had the marquee game, like the biggest name game of that week. And it was always a few days late. And obviously it was the only game I could watch, so I made sure that it was on at a reasonable hour here. So I always made sure that I got to watch that with my mum's. And then after a while, man, it was like every time the Celtics played, I kind of gravitated towards those guys.
Okay.
Space Jam hit shortly after all of that. Next thing I know, I've got a hoop in my garden. I'm practicing. Games started getting more and more regular over the next few years. And then eventually League Pass came. And before I knew it, I was watching it daily.
Nice. So just talk about the basketball scene out there. Because, when you think England, you don't think basketball. So just talk about the basketball scene out there. And, has it grown basketball out there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I used to play like, they called it, it was probably very similar to what you guys would call AAU, not in talent level, just in the way it's set up. So like, you represent your city and you travel around the country playing other cities' best players. And I was representing my city from age 13 to age 18. We used to travel around, but it was the same heads on the circuit. There was like always, it was no matter what city we went to, what year, there was very rarely any new talent coming through. So it was quite stagnant. And then over the last probably 3-4 years, pretty much since the Warriors blew up, you started to see more and more people walking around in jerseys. You go on Twitter, there's a UK fan account for pretty much every team. It's a very casual scene. There's not many people I can really. There's a few. Don't get me wrong. There's a few guys I class as real good basketball minds out here. But I can count them on one hand. But as a scene within itself, it is definitely growing. There's definitely more of an audience for it. It's just. It will never be the primary sport here. Just like it's not going to be there because you've got the football out there too.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you get about, writing and, creating content? How did that go about?
Man, I just needed someone to talk to ball about, to be quite honest. Like it was the season that the Celtics made the trade with the Nets, and I just had no one to speak to, and it was driving me insane because up until that point, there was the 08 championship, and you could kind of get on forums and do a little bit, but it was never the same as actually having like a vocal conversation and stuff. And then the Celtics made that big trade and blew it up, and I was like, I need an outlet. So I started a blog and an independent podcast. I'd done that for about a year, like writing on that blog, maybe about 18 months. Made some really good friends through Twitter and stuff that I class as friends now. And then I ended up moving over to like the fan-sided platform, done a little bit of work for Hoops Habit. And then I just got fortunate, man, that I kept putting out content, kept producing podcasts. made friends with some people within the industry, some agents, some high-level journalists and stuff. And then eventually I got the offer coming from CelticsBlog to move over there. I went there as like a contributor. And then obviously through that time, I kind of took on the role of leading their podcast because I'd got about 2.5 years of podcast experience by that point. So I took over that, kept producing content, and then managed to become lucky enough to become a lead writer for those guys. And then recently, a company called CLNS Media, I do some post-game work for them sometimes if I'm awake, due to the time difference. They said to me, like, hey, we want you, if possible, we'd like you to put a podcast on this network with us as well. And I've done work with Jonathan Macri in the past, so I reached out to John. Yeah, John's awesome. So I reached out to John, like, yeah, hey, I've been asked to do this podcast. What do you think? Do you want to join? Like, you want to do this together? And he was really receptive, and that's been great. That's been a bunch of fun as well.
Yeah, Jonathan, I've had him on the show. I had him on the show a few months ago, and he's tremendous. With all his Knicks stuff. How's that combo of a guy who covers the Knicks and you being a Celtics guy? How's that combination? Because New Yorkers, we're not big Boston fan. If you haven't known, well,
yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious. I'm pretty much, I mean, mine and John's dynamic's quite good. We joke about where the Knicks are versus where the Celtics are. There's a little bit of good-natured fun, but I'm quite high on the Knicks. I feel like with the core they've got, a few good moves and stuff, we kind of bounce around whether the coaching situation, he likes some players I don't like some players he likes. So it makes for good conversation, but it never gets anything more than a bit of a good-natured abuse.
Yeah, and being I'm a Knicks fan, so I mean, sometimes they give you stuff to that you have to like kind of like talk about them in a negative light. But let's hope that with the new front office and all these guys that they could turn it over and we could have some positive talk like the Celtics are being talked about. So obviously you cover the Celtics and all that, and they've how do you feel about the Celtics? How did you feel about the Celtics going into the NBA restart? Obviously, the restart started last week, and the Celtics have looked solid so far. So, how did you feel about the Celtics going into this restart?
Going into the restart, I was hype. I was like, they ended at the point that the season ended during that hiatus. They were on probably their best run of the season. Tatum was doing everything right. He was making all the right moves, showing such development. That all-star appearance really kind of gave him the fuel to take that next step. Hayward looked good. And I felt like there was a few niggling injuries throughout the roster. You've got guys like Enes Kanter had missed a bit of time. Rob Williams had missed a bunch of time. Hayward had been in and out of the team with his foot, and he hurt his hand against the Spurs earlier in the season. Kemba Walker's knees were starting to show some wear and tear. So I was like, 4 months off. The team's coming back healthy. Like, this can only be a good thing, right? And then we got to the bubble and we started seeing the games. I was like, oh, my God, there's going to be a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. I mean, who has surprised you so far on the Celtics so far in the bubble?
Probably Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's kind of been Boston's best player throughout the last few games. They played 4 games now. They had Milwaukee, Portland. I forget who they played the other night, and then they had the Nets. Who did they lose to before the Nets? It was Miami. So they've played 4 games. Jaylen Brown has pretty much been the best guy on the floor throughout those 4.
He's looked tremendous. He's definitely skyrocketed on like as far as one of the best young players in the league.
It's crazy how much he's actually improved. Like, he improved loads coming off the end of last season into this season.
Yeah.
Like, real big alterations to his game, real big additions to the way he attacks the game. And then it looks like he's took those big additions and kind of blended them more with the game he's actually got for over the last 4 months. And man, he's a problem. He's a real big problem. He's going to be a big focal point over the next few months in that bubble.
Yeah, and I think when you think of the Celtics right now, I mean, obviously you think of Kemba Walker and you think Jason Tatum, but if Jaylen Brown is playing at a high level, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to beat Boston, especially when all 3 of those guys sick. And obviously, Kemba is dealing with a little bit of a knee, some knee issues. And so for Jaylen to take that, to be able to help Tatum and take that role and being, whether he's Batman or whether he's Robin to Tatum, he's excelling. He's showing why he probably maybe should have been an all-star this year, because you could have argued that he was an all-star this year. He was having that good of a season, but obviously Tatum has, blossomed into a potential superstar. But Jaylen Brown, I mean, people, and I'm probably a prisoner of this, where I'm like, okay, I love Jason Tatum. I'm a Duke fan, so I'm always going to be a big Jason Tatum guy. But man, Jaylen Brown, he keeps getting better and better and better, and he's going to be an important piece in order for Boston to take that step and possibly get to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it, Batman and Robin. I actually wrote something about that earlier in the week, where I was saying I'm looking at it more now as different actors of Batman, between your Adam West and your Michael Keaton.
That's good. That's a good one.
Christian Bale, and then you've got like these 4 guys, because I include Gordon Hayward in this. Gordon Hayward has been slept on tremendously.
He's played good in the bubble.
Oh, he has, man. He really has, especially offensively. But he can just facilitate so well. If you watch him against the Nets, they used him in the pick and roll, coming in like into a half court set before defenses were getting set up, and he was just finding players playing in the seams. He was finding guys coming off backdoor cuts. He's ridiculously underrated as like an overall guy. So between those 4, offensively, they've got no worries. It's the defense that's looked a little bit suspect over the first 4 games.
Yeah, and it seems like Boston's finally getting the Hayward that they wanted. This is the guy that they got from Utah, who was just a great all-around player, could do everything pretty good. And obviously he got hurt the first game a couple years ago, and it's taken him a while to get back, but it seems like he's finally getting his groove back. I mean, that Milwaukee game, he was tremendous in that Milwaukee game. He's just playing at a tremendous level, and he's going to be another big piece, along with hopefully Kemba can get his legs back. That's going to be huge if he can get his legs back, because it seems like he doesn't look the same. He doesn't look the same, Kemba, right now, but hopefully they can get him back to playing, getting healthy before they get ready for this playoff push.
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, I spoke to Hayward during the hiatus. I had a conversation with Gordon Hayward probably about 2 weeks after the season got put on hold. And he was telling me like the work he was putting in, how the coaches were kind of structuring workout programs for each player and what they were trying to work towards. And then you see these guys come in, and you see that, like, barring Jason Tatum, who didn't have a hoop for like 2.5 months before he eventually opened up a gym for him. These guys have been putting in work. They weren't sitting down watching TV for 4 months. Those guys were grinding. And I think that maybe that's what's kind of held Kemba back a little bit, that he was putting in work when he really could have done with like just doing a little bit of cardio every day, and then scaling that up as they move closer to the Disney return. But offensively, Gordon Hayward, the only thing that worries you is like he has a player option after this season. I mean, I don't see it happening. I don't see him opting out, but I didn't see Al Horford opting out last year. So never say never, but with the way the cap's about to look, I can see him staying for another year. I think he wants a couple of chips, and Boston's the best place for him at the moment if he wants to contend and earn the money that he's currently earning.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, like you said, you mentioned Al Horford. They lost Al Horford last offseason. He goes to Philadelphia. So, I mean, obviously that leaves a big hole around the rim, a rim protector, a good solid defender. Who does Boston need to step up, to try to not essentially to replace Horford, because replacing Horford is not an easy task, but which big has to really step up in order for this team to take that next step and get past the Milwaukee's and teams like that?
So Daniel Tice really kind of stepped into the role of being able to facilitate on offense from above the 3-point line, run those DHOs that Brad Stevens likes to run. But defensively and kind of a little bit offensively too, they've got Robert Williams, who had his best game of his career.
Great game this last game,
He played really, really well. He showed some things. One thing I was pointing out on my podcast after the game was Rob Williams has got, I don't know if you've seen much of him, but he's got a reputation for biting on pretty much any pump fake, any head fake.
Yeah.
The dude just wants to get airborne. He loves being in the air. And as soon as he came onto the floor, Brooklyn went small. So they were forcing him to guard somebody that was more dynamic as a scorer and forcing him to kind of play a bit higher up out of the paint. And he stayed on the ground. And he really, really made life difficult for that small ball lineup. And he really held his own once they went back with Jarrett Allen as well. So he's going to be a guy that could be a difference maker, especially on defense where he can actually protect the rim at a high level. He's got the athleticism as well that if you beat him off the dribble, he can keep in your rear view and get that behind the back swat going as well. I think he's going to be a committee type of thing until Robert Williams reaches the potential that he's got. You're going to have to rely on that hockey-style rotation of bigs that Brad Stevens has implemented this year.
Yeah,
where
the
it's just
three-man rotation,
yeah, matchup dependent. If it's a big body that likes to bang, you throw an Enes Kanter in there. If it's a guy like Miles Turner, then you want Daniel Tice in there. If it's a guy like Marc Gasol, that realistically, if you run him off the line, he's off the 3-point line, he's not really that effective anymore because he's getting a bit older.
Yeah.
Then you
definitely not the same players, for sure.
Yeah, exactly, man. So you can put someone like Rob Williams in there and ask him to play along the high help line. And then as Marc Gasol starts to rise up, Rob Williams has got that wingspan and athleticism to contest the shot from 4 or 5 feet out because he can close the distance so well and get up laterally so quickly. So at the moment, it's definitely going to be all three of them. But long time, Rob Williams needs to show some consistency in his improvements.
Yeah, for sure. But he, like you said, last game he was absolutely tremendous and he's definitely playing solid basketball, especially after that last game versus the Nets. But who else is an underrated piece that definitely needs to be a key contributor for this Boston team?
That's hard, man, because most of the pieces are rookies. They're so young on the bench once you get past the initial. Romeo Langford was somebody that Keith Smith wrote about. He from CelticsBlog and Yahoo Sports wrote about today. And I kind of agree with his sentiment. He was saying that Romeo Langford has been one of the better wing defenders this season on the Celtics. Romeo Langford came into the season, if you don't know much about him, he played most of the college season with a damaged thumb. Really affected his shooting form. He missed all of summer league. Then he had to rehab his hand, rebuild his jumper, came back. And then I think it was his ankles he did next. Like his ankles gave in. So then he had to rehab them. Then he came back. Then he got hurt again. So this dude's missed hell of a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Played very, very sporadic minutes. But then before the restart, he'd earned playing time. And there were stretches where he was guarding LeBron James and doing well. Like he was staying in front of LeBron. You know, he's making life difficult. And then he was the player that played against the Nets that had the most minutes off the bench. He was a plus 26. Had plus minus of plus 26. Real pesky guy. Real high energy. Indiana legend in high school basketball.
He was tremendous at Indiana.
Oh man, those guys eat, sleep. It's like I always say, Indiana is basketball's Texas.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a hotbed for basketball out there.
Oh man, it's like my mecca, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like Romeo Langford's got. He's going to be one of those guys that really turns some heads once the playoffs begin if he gets the minutes to play.
Yeah, because he got a lot of minutes. What do you play? Like 25, 26 minutes against Brooklyn?
Yeah, like
I know it's Brooklyn, so yeah, and they're depleted, so I know people may not put it into that, but he got the play. And that's the most important thing is he got the play and you put him in there in some minutes so he can get back in rhythm. And, that's going to be important because he's a possible player that could definitely help them, especially getting into this playoffs.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's going to be, one of the things to note is that he kind of stepped into a lot of the minutes that had been vacated by Kemba Walker's absence. Yeah. So those minutes aren't readily available every night anyway. It's very unlikely you'll see him rack up that sort of playing time again unless injuries occur or players sit out. And then it goes on matchups as well. So you might see Semi Ojeleye get minutes over him, but Semi Ojeleye isn't as reliable as, in my opinion, Semi Ojeleye, you either get really damn good Semi Ojeleye,
or really bad.
Or what are you doing on the floor? How are you?
Oh my god, I forgot. I don't know what game it was, but there was where he was just missing everything. I'm like, dude, you need to stop shooting. Like you missing and wide open shots too. He was missing. Like
it's frustrating, man, because there's some nights that he'll like completely lock down his man.
Mhm.
Then he'll be flying around on rotations and locking down other people's guys.
Yeah.
And he'll be hitting his threes on the move as well as set threes. And in the next game, it's like he's a minus 15 or something stupid. You're like, what are you doing on the floor? I don't understand how you can be so inconsistent.
Oh yeah, he's definitely super inconsistent for sure.
Crazy work ethic though, by all accounts. You speak to the coaches and stuff.
Mhm.
Whenever I've been fortunate enough to, it's not something I get to do regularly. But they'll speak highly of that guy. They feel like he's got one of the best work ethics in the league, and maybe that's why he's still in the league, because of the example he sets to the young guys around him. But from a talent level, man, like he needs to sort out his consistency, because he can definitely do it when he's on his game. It's just being on his game every night that's become really difficult for him to master.
Yeah, because if you look at the Nets game, he does play solid. But then the Miami game, where you're playing against a team that you could possibly see in the playoffs, one of 6 from the field, and 1 of 5 from 3-point, and he just and like I said, he had some open looks and he just didn't hit them. So it's going to be interesting to see how how he's going to work. Once they get down to the playoffs, because they might gonna need it, like you said, with Kemba being iffy and that knee, it's going to be interesting to see how he gets incorporated into the team.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's a scary prospect, to be honest with you.
They're up. Oh wow! Actually, I just looked. They were just down. They were just beating Milwaukee by 20, and I look up and it's a 2-point game. But and this is without Jimmy Butler and Gordon Jarrett, and they were up big. So Miami is definitely a tough matchup for them.
Yeah, I feel like Miami and Toronto are the 2 teams that Milwaukee are going to want to avoid until the Eastern Conference Finals, because either of those 2 teams could really, really make it difficult for Milwaukee.
Yeah,
and
for
there's
sure.
a possibility over a 7. You never know what's going to happen over a 7-game series. I feel like Toronto is probably more likely to beat them, like over a 7-game series. But Miami earlier in the season, I read something about this. I can't remember who wrote it. It was Zach Lowe or somebody of that caliber. They were like, Miami put the blueprint out there on how to stop Giannis. They were trapping him with Embiid, and they were throwing Butler just off the passing lane to jump the passes. And they were like, this blueprint, Miami have figured out how to stop Giannis. And once you do that, you can live with Chris Middleton making his shots, because he isn't going to shoot you to victory.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw it last year in the playoffs with Toronto. They were down 2-0, and then they figured out, okay, we have to make sure Giannis does not get past, half court. Like, we got to get him half court, because once he gets past half court and you don't got anyone on him, he goes full speed. It's going to be hard to stop him. So Toronto just figure out, we got a Siakam, we got a Ibaka, and we got Kawhi. We're just going to build a wall, and you're not going to get past it. So that's kind of what Miami has done, and why Miami's had success against them. So, that's kind of how you got to defeat Milwaukee. For sure.
Yeah, and Toronto can do that this season.
And they can do it, and they got OG back. So now replacing Kawhi, so you have the length there, so you could still do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth, man. OG's got the length, he's got the athleticism he can't replace Kawhi's skill set, but he can replace the body and the size of body that's going to be in that wall. They know how to beat Milwaukee, and that's the thing. They have the personnel to do so.
Yes.
You put Milwaukee against Boston, Giannis is having a field day once it gets downhill, because they just don't have the physical attributes in terms of size to build that wall and maintain it. It's like watching Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need a certain amount of bodies behind that wall.
Yep.
Otherwise, that wall's coming down.
Yes.
Giannis is the White Walker.
Yes, he is the White Walker. That's a great reference. I missed that show, by the way. But what does Boston need to do to be the representative of the Eastern Conference? What is the blueprint for them to get to the finals?
See, they played it in game 1 against Milwaukee last year. That was a very bad series overall as a Boston cover and as a Boston fan. Really bad memories. But game 1, they were elite. So what they were doing was they were picking Giannis up. Again, they were picking him up at the half court, but they were getting underneath him. So they were making sure that they were trying to draw fouls off him. They were trying to poke the ball loose from him. They were hedging him towards the sideline. They weren't letting him play centrally. And what that was doing was it was frustrating the life out of Giannis, because Boston are really, really good at jumping passing lanes. They've been one of the better teams at it all year. Tatum's made a major jump in steals and deflections off passes throughout the season. So what they do is they kind of get underneath Giannis early and they force him towards the sideline and try and ice him there, and then force him to either make the pass or drive and then try and draw the foul off the drive, or at least give him some contact to wear him down. They were really successful in that, but it's such a high energy type of defense because of the rotations that have to happen to make sure there's no open shooter off a swing pass, right? So you need to make sure you can always close out on the opposite side corner. So it's really good, really easy to do for a game. Maintaining that defensive efficiency and defensive intensity for 7 games, 48 minutes, well, however long Giannis is in, so like 30 minutes a game over 7 games. That's a really tough ask, man. I'm expecting to see some funky rotations and some crazy play calling off Brad Stevens to pull that one out.
Yeah, and Brad Stevens could definitely get that done. I mean, because if you force Giannis to be a playmaker, I think that would benefit you because, you know, I mean, he's definitely improved as far as the playmaking and but that's not a great strength. He's obviously his strength is getting to the basket and all that and just, you know, doing all that. But if you can, I even saw against Brooklyn, I mean, you know, he was making some decisions where you're like, oh, okay, Giannis is forcing some things. And if you know, if that were the case with Boston, to meet up with Boston in that, you know, if they could force them, you know, they got Marcus Smart, obviously. And you know, we saw Marcus Smart, you know, get into, can definitely defend with the best of them. You know, he could definitely be a nuisance in that aspect. I think, you know, with those long, you know, you got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are long guys. I mean, it could definitely work with Boston, but you know, it's going to be tough, as you say. It's going to be tough to beat Milwaukee, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see because I think people underestimate the Eastern Conference. I mean, there's some, you know, Indiana's good, you know, you still got the Sixers even though they lost Ben Simmons, but right now Boston would play the Sixers right now. How do you like that matchup right now for Boston?
You want to know something truthful, and this is no shade on Ben Simmons. I don't mean any disrespect when I say this. I think the Sixers are more dangerous with Ben Simmons injured than they are with him on the floor.
I agree.
Because the biggest issue all year and all for as long as I can remember at this point, is how do you play Simmons and Embiid together? How do you get the best out of the both of them when they're both on the floor? Well, that problem's
There's
gone.
no spacing. You have no spacing because you got 2 guys that, you know, Embiid can shoot. He can shoot technically, but he's not an efficient, you know, outside, you know, perimeter shooter. And Ben Simmons doesn't shoot perimeter shots at all. I think the last 3-pointer he made was against the Knicks. I remember that game because I was like, I can't believe he just made 3 against us. But
yeah, pretty much every rookie in the league at this point has more career threes than Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
The thing is, you remove Ben Simmons from that equation, and all of a sudden, there's spacing again. There's a defined hierarchy that we're going to drive. We're going to find Embiid on the block. We're going to let Embiid go to work. If Embiid fades off a pick and roll, then we're going to hit him on the 3-point line and let him get to work there.
Mm-hmm.
It's more defined. It's more structured, and it removes that, oh, Ben's got to get his touches. Ben's got to get his drives, and Ben's got to get his dishes. And, you know, it's kind of more like, well, Embiid, this is your team now, and you're capable of going for 40 and 20. So we're going to need you to go for 40 and 20 every night. So go and do your thing. So I feel like they're a lot more dangerous without Ben. However, I do feel that without Ben Simmons, they just don't have the firepower to overcome Celtics in a 7-game series.
No.
I don't class Brett Brown as a high-level coach either, so I don't think he could out-scheme Brad Stevens over 7 games either.
No, definitely not. Brett Brown is he's definitely on the hot seat, to say the least, because even with having, you know, the spacing issues with Ben Simmons and Embiid, for them to be just a 6 seed, it's kind of crazy. I mean, you look at the, you know, obviously the team's a lot different from last year's team, and, you know, they don't have JJ Redick, and, you know, there's no Jimmy Butler, but you still would be like, this is definitely a top 3-4 seed for sure team. Like you would just assume, and they just haven't looked.
Al Horford?
Yeah, Al Horford, and like he just hasn't looked the same. You know, he just hasn't looked the same, Al Horford. So I mean, and they tied him, gave him a lot of money. And it's a disappointment, this Sixers team. But so that first round matchup, especially now that Simmons is out, you're gonna have Embiid probably be the focal point. I mean, they might have might have more spacing, but that first round matchup with Boston, Boston should definitely take care of the Sixers in that first round matchup if that stays the way it is.
Yeah, I've got the Sixers as being the first big name team to leave the East. I feel like I remember when Al Horford went to Philly and I was heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
And then his sister's quite big on social media, isn't she, Anna? And I spoke to Anna about it. I was like, hey, what happened? How can we decide? She was like, he's gone where he feels is the best chance of winning. Because this was after Kyrie Irving left, but before Kemba Walker came in. So he was under the assumption Boston was going to go with a youth movement and felt that Philly gave him more.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, wow. And felt that because Kemba Walker hadn't came in yet, but they were waiting on Al Horford to make his decision before they decided how they wanted to pivot. And then Kemba Walker became available. So they were like, well, you go and get Kemba Walker and we get rid of Terry Rozier. So he went before knowing that the Celtics were going to pick up one of the best available guard following Kyrie leaving on the market. So I think in hindsight, he's probably looking back like, well, if I'd known that, then I never would have made this decision anyway.
Yeah.
I can't say that for certain because that's not something that's been said to me. That's my own assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at Brett Brown don't know how to use Al Horford. You need to be using him as a de facto playmaker off.
Yeah, he's a tremendous playmaker. Yeah,
you run him as
high screens and all that.
Yeah, DHOs. You start putting him in the corners, let him go to some corner split actions, and running him as a secondary facilitator. They're not using him that way. And then in defense, you want to put him in some drops and then let him rotate onto the perimeter after the bigs kind of rotated back out of the paint because the drops put him off getting the ball down low. They're not using him in that way because you have Embiid in that position. And when Embiid's not on the floor, then you're not facing a secondary big that's going to come in and try and bang down low. They're going to try and facilitate for whatever ball handlers on the floor. So it just hasn't worked, basically. And I don't feel like he's in a better position now than he was when he left Boston. I feel like it's probably a worse position.
Oh, yeah, way worse. Yeah.
If
he's in Boston right now, I think a lot of people would even feel more better about Boston, coming out the East for sure.
Oh, if he never left and Kemba came in and the line and you just put Tice on the bench and you're running with Horford, Kemba, Jalen, Jason, and Gordon. For me, that's one of the favorites in the entire league. Never mind.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, because they could play with anyone at that point. But that's a decision he made, and I don't know how it's going to work in Philly because if they get bounced off in the first round, major changes might be made for Philly, and a team that we once thought they lost in a game 7 on a last second shot last year, and and they could have been in the conference finals, and now with all the turmoil and all the dysfunction, if we could see this team get blown up possibly. And
I feel like you probably changed the coach before you changed the pieces.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons and Embiid are both two high quality, high caliber guys to not try and see how another coach could work it. Yeah. You've ran it with Brett Brown pretty much the entirety of their careers. Maybe you try and get somebody that's a bit more innovative, a little bit more modern in the way they attack the offense. And maybe you get one that just says to Simmons, I don't care what your percentage is, but you start putting up threes, 4 or 5 threes a game until they start falling because we need you to score. Brett Brown just doesn't seem to put that pressure on Simmons, and he's not forcing him to evolve into that player that could then make him probably one of the top 3 guys in the league at that point.
If Ben Simmons evolves his game, he could literally be the best player, an MVP type player. It's not scary because he's good as is right now without a jump shot. So just imagine if he developed a respectable jump shot. It's scary, but maybe that is a Brett Brown issue. Maybe that is a player development issue where they're not developing him the right way. Because it's kind of crazy to think that a guy like that just doesn't have any confidence to shoot a jump shot. It's
either Simmons. Yeah, it's either Simmons saying no, I don't want to do that, or it's a coaching aspect. And I feel like if you get a coach in there that's a bit of a player development coach, but has won in the past, and he comes in and he's like, look, I know what you need to do to win. You need to become a pick and pop threat. You need to become a 3-point threat. If you don't do that, you're always going to have early exits. If Simmons is a big time competitor, he's going to work on that. If I was a Philly fan, I wouldn't care if you shot 0 for 5 for 7 months if it means that long term you're going to be going 3 for 5 every night. I want that because the spacing it's going to open up for Embiid. It's going to change the trajectory of your team. I wouldn't care what the teething process was like.
Yeah, because if he develops that, I mean, it's just going to make him get into the basket even better. He's just going to be a better driver because now people are going to have to respect him, at the perimeter and, give him a little quick hezzy and get to the hole. Like, it'll just make his game better. But like you said, I don't know if it's a Simmons, but you see Simmons work on it. All the practice videos you see him working on it. So I just don't know if it's Simmons just not having that confidence, and believing that he can hit those shots consistently, or is it a coaching thing where they're not putting him in the right positions? So it's something. It's just crazy to think that a guy like that who's so talented just can't, just doesn't have a jump shot like that. Even a decent. I mean, we saw this with Giannis, but at least Giannis has now developed a respectable jump shot. It's still not perfect, but a respectable jump shot, and he got better. It's crazy. So I wonder how how this is going to work with Ben Simmons because he's tremendous as is, tremendous defender, playmaker, rebounder and all that. So and that's going to be interesting to see how that whole Sixers team goes about because they definitely have disappointed this year for sure.
Yeah, I felt moving Simmons to the 4 was a masterstroke, but I also felt it was a panic move.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's not working with him at the point. Let's put him at the 4 and see what happens. Let's see if it sticks. And if it doesn't work, then we'll put him back at the point because that's where he's used to it. To me, it definitely feels like he could be a lot more viable playing at the 4, but running that point forward type of position the way LeBron does. But at the same time, it was like, if you were going to do that, wouldn't you have wanted him to learn that throughout a regular NBA season instead of here's 8 games, we're going to put you there, and then we're going to playoffs.
Yeah, that doesn't make some sense, but we'll see how it works for them because Ben Simmons might be out for the rest of the season, so it's going to be interesting to see how Philly does. So before I let you go, let's who do you have going to the finals? Who's the representative of the East? Who's the representative of the West?
It's one of those my mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes scenarios, and I answer that question the same way every time. My mind's telling me it's going to be yes, so my head says it's Milwaukee, and my heart says it's Boston, and then the sleeper's going to be Toronto. It's one of those 3. I'm obviously, if I say it's Boston, then that's the team I cover. That's the team I also root for. So I'm a homer.
But you would have a legit reason to pick, Boston, because, it's not like it's a crazy assumption that Boston can get out the East. It's not a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, the thing is, I watch every Boston game, and whoever says they watch every game of every team is talking out their bum, because that just doesn't happen.
No.
So I watch every Boston game, so I know that roster, I know what it's capable of, and I feel like they've got the potential to make it out of the East. But whenever I watch Milwaukee, I'm like, these guys are scary. They're a problem. So I'm going to say Milwaukee, but I'm very sad about admitting that.
Yeah, Milwaukee. But and I'm watching the game right now against Miami. They just haven't seemed right, Milwaukee, especially once they got to the bubble. They struggled before. They had lost, I believe, 2 in a row before the pandemic had happened. And, they just haven't seemed right yet. And it seems like Giannis he's been doing a lot of crying. He's been complaining a lot more. He's been a little feisty of late. He hasn't been as crisp as far as his offense. I don't know. I if I had to pick, I would still go with Milwaukee coming out the East. But to me, it went from being a lock to maybe I'm not so sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto takes him out, or if Boston takes him out, or hell, Miami takes him. And Miami's taking them out right now, and they don't have Kemba. They don't have Jimmy Butler playing.
Yeah, I feel like it all do a lot. It's the same every year. So saying it is because it's in the bubble is a little bit disingenuous, but it all comes up to who do they face in the first round, in the semis, in the finals. If they run into a Toronto or Miami in the second round, then you best believe that they're going to be pushed to a 7-game series. My biggest thing is if they fail to come out of the East again,
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be crazy if they don't come out the East. I think
exactly.
the pressure is on. It starts if they lose, if they don't get to the finals, the pressure is on for them.
Yeah, like when do you start questioning Giannis's ability to lead the team towards the championship?
The pressure. Yep.
Yeah, it becomes a lot different. Is Giannis going to stick around? A lot of questions start to arise.
I'm not gonna say it because my team has been a bit struck and fall, but I'm low key rooting for Milwaukee to not get to the finals, so I could start maybe fantasizing about him coming to a certain team in the East Coast. But I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to.
Do they wear blue and orange by any chance?
Yeah, they're similar colors to that. But
yeah,
I won't say the name.
Time player being Carmelo Anthony, just so we're on the same page.
Yes, Gabe Melo back in New York. That's definitely. But I don't want to put that in the air because then I'll get it. We've been bitten before, so I won't say that. But the pressure's on. The pressure's on for Milwaukee. If they don't get it done, I mean, the pressure will be on Giannis too. It would kind of be like LeBron. When that first, when he left Cleveland, it would kind of feel similar to that. Like. LeBron felt the pressure, and they were the number. It's similar because they were the number one seed Cleveland that year when they lost to Boston in the conference finals. It's kind of similar.
Boston has a way of doing that as well.
They do, and if he don't get to the final, and if he loses even before that, which can happen, that second round matchup. I mean, that's gonna be a tough matchup for them. Man, and I've said this so many times on my show. Like, if they don't get to the finals, they're going to be in trouble because now they're going to panic, and when you panic, you make some irrational moves, and it's going to be tough. Middleton has a lot of pressure on him, being the second best player on the team. So they're going to have to figure things out if they don't get it done. But it's going to be interesting to see because they definitely probably, to me, they have the most pressure of any team in the bubble. Not the Lakers and, not any other team, not the Clippers. Milwaukee has the most pressure in the bubble.
I'll tell you what, Brogdon was the biggest loss for them.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yes. 90, 50, 40 guy. You guys, there's not a lot of guys. A lot of guys in those. Yeah, you let him walk. And I said that before the season. I'm like, that's going to be a loss that they may not feel in the regular season because you could just run through, so many bad teams. You could run through those teams and win 60-plus games. But in the playoffs, when you need a guy like that, who's just efficient and makes this as a solid player, that's where it's going to show in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. I was a really big fan of Brogdon last season. When he went to Indiana, I've been saying all year, you get Brogdon and Oladipo playing together, both fit and healthy. And it sucks that Sabonis isn't there for them right now.
Yeah.
But if he was, then, you can't sleep on Indiana at that point either because they've just got some really efficient scorers. Unfortunately, it's not going to play out that way for them due to Sabonis being down. But, Milwaukee are really going to feel that.
Yeah, no, man. If Indiana had Sabonis, man, they would be another dangerous team. With TJ Warren, he's been going crazy. He actually had a not an explosive game today. He did have a double 16-11, but having got those guys, I mean, if they had Sabonis there, that's another dangerous team for sure. But who you have coming out the West?
Probably it's going to be the Lakers just because I feel like LeBron's on a mission to honor Kobe, which I completely understand. And I genuinely, as a Celtics guy, I never want to see the Lakers do well. This year is an exception. I actually want to see them do exceptionally well because of the Kobe, the tragedy around Kobe and cementing it. I feel like it would be a way to honor his legacy if they did really fight to the finals and win. And LeBron's the sort of guy that will take that personally and do everything he can to try and lift that banner for him.
Yeah, and that's a reason why I have the Lakers, winning the West, because I just think all those aspects you just mentioned, the loss of Kobe and just how much they just want to, like I said, and like you said, I'm not I don't root for the Lakers and all that, you usually want them to not get anywhere far, but this year is definitely different, trying to honor Kobe, and that would be cool to see them get to the finals and possibly win it, and at least, end the year off. It's been a difficult 2020 to say the least. It's been a tough year. Started off with Kobe, the loss of Kobe, and then obviously, coronavirus and all this. But to cap it off with a championship for the Lakers, I mean, that would be tremendous. So I definitely think LeBron's on a mission to definitely get that done. But it won't be easy. It's definitely not going to be easy, especially out west where,
I think long-time real basketball fans as well would somehow be happy if that happened. Like, regardless of who you root for, that would have like a meaning. Like real ball fans,
Mm-hmm.
that would be sentimental no matter what team you supported.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't matter if Kobe was your favorite player or not, but he meant something to a lot of people. No matter what. Whether you're throwing a piece of a piece of paper into the garbage, what do you say? You say Kobe. It felt like I remember when it happened, and it's just like it felt like a family member had passed away. And you just didn't want to believe it, and you were just like, it was crazy. So, how sad it was, and just the loss of the families, and him with his daughter, it was heartbreaking. But Kobe, that's definitely a big factor. And I think, like I said, a lot of people are really gonna, wouldn't have mind seeing the Lakers winning it because of, it would honor Kobe. What better way to honor Kobe than to go out and win a championship? That's how he would want, to be remembered. So, I agree. I got the Bucks and the Lakers winning the championship. But it's definitely going to be it's going to be fun. I can't wait for the playoffs to start and all that.
Yeah, man, me neither. These seeding games are fun and all, but I'm ready for the real balls to start now.
Yeah, for sure. But it's how do you like the look of it? The look of
I like it, man.
basketball?
I watched the entire TBT tournament.
Yeah, that got me prepped too for this too, because it's crazy how it's very similar to how they set it up for the TBT tournament.
Yeah, exactly. So when the NBA came back, I was like, yeah, I'm used to this. I've just watched the entire TBT tournament. I like it. I like the virtual fans. I'd like it if Boston were offering it out to other than season ticket holders, but I understand why they're doing that.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think they've done the best they can in such a short time span, and it's turned into a really. I like the atmosphere. I like hearing guys shouting out when they miss and you hear them curse at each other.
Yeah, I think that might be the best part, is hearing the players go at it and hearing what they're saying. That's definitely a fun aspect of basketball.
Yeah, it's very pure. It's like basketball in its purity.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, and they've done everything right. There's no positive corona test. No one's tested positive, and the basketball, as usual, it seems like they're doing everything the right way. Unlike other sports, that haven't done it the right way, and like especially baseball, they've kind of
we're looking at you, baseball.
Yeah, baseball has definitely not handled this right, but the players didn't want a bubble, and look, this is what happens. You don't have a bubble. So the NBA, Adam Silver has definitely done a tremendous job to put out the best product possible, make the guys, and most importantly, have a safe environment. That's the number one thing, is having a safe environment. And, they've done a tremendous job so far. So kudos to the NBA for doing as best as possible, under the circumstances. They've done the best job they possibly can do. So shout out to the NBA for all that, because, it's definitely fun to see basketball back and, getting ready for this playoff run. But Adam, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. It was definitely a pleasure having you on, my man.
Yeah, man, for sure. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So before I let you go, where can people find your work? Go plug all your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Adam Taylor NBA. You can find me on Instagram with the exact same but I'm hardly on there because basketball content lives on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure.
Find my written work and audio work over at CelticsBlog.com, and also the Hoops by podcast available on all your podcast networks. I also do a weekly NBA newsletter. This week I broke down Jonathan Isaac's game, looking at how he could bounce back from this ACL tear.
Yeah, that was a tough injury, man.
Oh, man. The link for that's in my Twitter profile as well, just highlighted in my Linktree's newsletter, so feel free to sign up for that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a tough injury to watch, man. You don't want to see players go out like that. But yeah, man. Like I said, this was definitely fun. I'm happy we finally got together and did this show, because this was definitely fun. And best of luck to you. You've definitely done some tremendous work, and that's why I wanted you on the show. You're definitely one of I love your work that you do. One of the best follows on Twitter for sure. So continued success with everything, and good luck with also the show with Jonathan Macri, because like I said, he's tremendous too. He's a great content creator. So best of luck with everything, my man.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem. And make sure you're safe where you are in England. Make sure you're safe, social distance, wear your mask, so we could get, hopefully when we're watching basketball next season, it's back to normal, and we're back to living normal lives. So on that note,
quicker it gets back, quicker I can get back out stateside. So I'm definitely going to be doing everything I can.
Yes, for sure. But it's not just, it's everyone else that has to listen. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Adam, thank you for coming on the show. And guys, make sure to I'll have the show posted later. I'll have all the links where you can follow Adam and all his tremendous work. So on that note, make sure to follow Off the Ball Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Off the Ball Pod. And podcast will be available on all podcast platforms. So on that note, guys, take care. Adam, like I said, be safe, take care, and see you guys.
You too, man. Keep up the solid work.
Yes, thank you, man. Take care.
Later.